Hello, I'm going to talk about a journey from performance theatre to process drama, and the surprises, struggles and successes encountered in making that shift. I'm a researcher, and this story arises from an evaluation I conducted in 2011 of a sexual health drama program delivered in New Zealand secondary schools. The commissioning body was the Ministry of Health. The organisation delivering the drama was the Theatre and Education Trust, or Theta, and the drama was called Sex Wise. I won't talk much about the actual evaluation, which was a mixed method evaluation using surveys, interviews, focus groups and observations. The evaluation itself showed that the drama was successful in terms of its entertainment value and the impact it had on parents, teachers, students and related service practitioners. But I want to focus on how and what in the program changed from 2010 through to 2012 or 13, and how effectively that change took the program towards process drama. To tell this story, I'm being joined virtually by Evelyn Mann. I'll let her introduce herself.
Kia ora, Limerick. I'm Evelyn Mann from Dunedin in the southern part of New Zealand. I have a background in teaching and a passion and considerable experience in drama and education. I've worked with Dr. Peter O'Connor in everyday theatre from the start of the program for approximately 8 years. I run a small business as a specialist in drama and education and work a variety of contracts. For the last 2 years, I have been the artistic director for Theta, the Theatre and Health Education Trust. Currently, Theta has a 3-year contract to deliver Sex Wise throughout New Zealand in secondary school settings, including alternative education centres, teen parent units and Te Kuta Kaupapa, our Māori language schools.
So before I get into what happened in the Sex Wise program, I just want to point out some key differences between theatre performance and process drama. In this slide we can see that some of the key aspects of theatre performance as used in schools for education are that it transmits information to students who tend to be not to interact with the performance. The performance is used as a way of lightening the message, because the message that's given is otherwise generally less palatable without being performed entertainingly. Humour is used, again, to sugarcoat the education. The performances tend to be light and fast-paced to keep the children interested. The messages are prepared, the outcome's predictable, and as I said, the audience generally are passive. They don't interact or move about. Contrastingly, with process drama, they're very much interested in interaction, and the drama attempts to connect to students' emotional and social lives. Many process dramas are interested in issues of social justice and social or personal growth. The performance is usually just the starting point, so it sets up a story from which the students can workshop. Because of that, the outcomes can't be known. They're negotiated with the students and created by the students. The students are co-actors in the drama, and the audience is internal as well as external. And one of the things that students tend to say about process drama is it's fun, because the topics that are chosen are real and important to the kids. So if the program was working well enough as edutainment, why fix it? Evelyn, can you tell us about what you found?
Yes, Chris. When I first took over Sex Wise, which has been around since the early 90s, the performance comprised comedic skits and a lot of information. The workshop involved students in activities that reinforced the information that had been delivered in the performance, and the activities were not drama-based. The information emphasised the dangers of not taking adequate precautions in sexual activity. I describe it as scaremongering. It was working, but after working with everyday theatre, I felt it had little or no lasting effect on those who participated, except for the enjoyment of the comedy. I felt it lacked depth and that there was little emotional engagement, and yet emotional engagement was important for students to be able to have empathy with the characters.
The experience of working with Everyday Theatre and Peter O'Connor had a profound impact on Evelyn and on the way she wanted to shape Sexwise. But others were also dissatisfied with the way health education was being taught. In research projects conducted with secondary school students, it had become clear to researchers that students felt that teaching was boring and unconnected to the reality of their personal lives. They wanted more guidance about relationships, more development of communication and negotiation skills, more relevance, more interactive activities, to be taught by sexuality educators who are open, candid, comfortable talking about sexual issues, and they wanted educators from outside the school. The number of unplanned pregnancies and STIs among New Zealand school children is quite high. The Ministry of Health updated the curriculum for schools and developed a series of specifications for the delivery of programs like Sexwise. Theta needed to keep the ministry's specifications in mind as it shifted towards a process drama approach to the delivery of Sexwise, and they needed to make sure that the program would reach Maori and Pacifica students. So what approach did you take, Evelyn?
Well, in the first year, I knew I needed actors who would engage the students through the performance. They needed to have a background of working alongside young people, including our young Māori and Pacifica folk. My goal in the first year was to create a narrative performance depicting real problems experienced by a small number of characters. We worked hard to make sure students could identify with those characters, their relationship and sexual health issues. We removed the explicit messages using the characters' stories to open opportunities for discussion. In the workshop, instead of simply reinforcing messages, I wanted it interactive. I wanted the workshop to explore sexual health problems and issues experienced by our young people. I wanted to draw students inside the narrative through drama conventions. I realised with the limited rehearsal time I had, however, and some resistance from the trust to these type of changes, that I needed to make the changes in incremental shifts.
In 2011, most of the unrelated skits had been moved from the performance. The narrative revolved now around Romeo and Juliet and in parallel 4 young people in a modern high school setting. Romeo and Juliet depict 17th century scenes of developing relationships and STIs. The purpose of including the Romeo and Juliet scenes was, at this point, to show how far sexual health understandings had come since the 17th century and to get laughs from the audience. Romeo and Juliet and the students in the modern setting are dealing with their relationships with each other, their beginning sexual activity and developing sexuality. James, Lucy, Jeff and Junior, the key characters in the story, try to establish relationships, negotiate sexual health issues and risks, and feel comfortable about their own and each other's sexuality. Modelling Sexwise on her experience with the Everyday Theatre workshops, Evelyn introduced 3 process drama conventions: the donut, hot seating and the advice circle, sequencing them in the same way as they had been sequenced in the Everyday Theatre production. However, Sexwise faced problems not faced by Everyday Theatre. The workshop time was restricted to the high school 50-minute lesson period, and the drama activities were subject to time and space constraints. There was also no time to use other conventions that could enable the co-creation of aspects of the story and add depth to students' experience of the drama. The donut activity gossip circle was the first one. You know that activity, students recall and retell aspects of the story several times to their partner as different characters. The activity demands lots of movement and simultaneous talking. The Sexwise actors were obliged to conduct the donut activity in a corner of a hall, which made it very difficult for the actors to maintain physical boundaries and to get the students' attention. In one instance, there were no teachers present, and new participants were sent by the teachers to the workshop halfway through the donut activity. These students needed to be incorporated into the group, and it was very difficult for the young actors. The next convention used was hot seating. The hot seating is easier from a classroom management perspective as students are seated usually on the floor around an actor on a chair. Students commented that they liked when they got asked the characters questions. They also felt that this technique was effective. However, in 2011, the constraints permitted the hot seating of only 2 characters in the sex-wise workshops. There wasn't time to have any more. This means that the students did not get to question a wide range of characters or to question each character deeply. The issues with the donut gossip circle were addressed by dumping it in 2012. And the issues with hot seating were addressed by having concurrent hot seating, so that you had 2 characters hot seated in one part of the hall and 2 characters hot seated in another part of the hall, different students in each group, but at least more characters hot seated. There were no issues with the third convention, the advice circle. By February 2011, 2 teams of young people comprising 3 actors each had been appointed for the 2011 rollout of Sexwise. They'd been appointed largely for their acting experience and for their youth. These actors had energy. Their youth, use of appropriate language, and vigour resonated with the audience. They had great dramatic and comic timing, and they were professional. They performed well and created convincing characters. One team of actors comprised 2 female and 1 male, and the other 2 male and 1 female. Each actor covered 2 or more parts. The young sex-wise actors received initial training in applied theatre techniques by Evelyn Mann, supported by Peter O'Connor. At the time we conducted the evaluation in mid-2011, through pre-tour training and ongoing support, the actors had had some knowledge of sexual health issues and some practice in classroom management and facilitating, using process drama conventions. Let's hear from Evelyn about what she was trying to do with the training.
So, what we tried to do was to focus the actors on understanding that they needed to create a performance that was a pretext, a provocation for the drama work, and to have them understand that the outcomes for them would be unpredictable in terms of the workshop. Mm-hmm. During this first year, I introduced them to only the conventions that I wanted to use in the workshop and to the basic skills they would require in facilitating these conventions. The third important area we worked on was the knowledge and understanding of classroom management. All of this training took place prior to the first tour beginning, and throughout the tour I undertook actor support visits so that I could continue coaching and mentoring the actors.
As we've seen, the actors needed to be able to encourage deep questioning, respond to questions in ways that fill out the character's backstory, allow students time for reflection, and to elicit deeper questions. The actors struggled with these new skills, yet despite this, students responded well to the work. They asked thoughtful questions of characters in the hot seat. Their questions were empathetic and not superficial. They offered considered advice in the advice circle, advice about relationships as well as sexual activity. However, the February 2012 training thought to address classroom management and facilitation skills much more deliberately, as these were still quite weak. Evelyn also made other changes.
Well, in this second year of transition, several changes were made. 4 actors were appointed to enable a stronger performance with fewer character double-ups. The Romeo and Juliet scenes were totally dropped in favour of further developing the narrative around those 4 young people in a contemporary school setting. This enabled the students to identify with roles in the complex and real-life relationships in the story.
In 2012, a new dimension was added to the performance and workshops with the aim of enabling the students to enact an advisory role. Students now became panellists for a fictitious live streaming channel where the characters post their issues and wait for advice. The effect of this shift has yet to be seen. Earlier I mentioned that the tracking of this journey came about partly as a consequence of an evaluation we conducted of Theta's Sexwise program for the Ministry of Health. The Ministry is pleased with the program. It ticks all of their boxes. The evaluation team identified some of the continuing work that needs to be done to build the drama.
And so to the next stage of development in Sexwise, looking forward to 2013. In terms of actors, I'm aiming this year to re-employ existing actors so that we build on their developing process drama facilitation, classroom management skills and sexual health knowledge, rather than having to start all over again with new people. There'll be further strengthening of the narrative through sharper articulation of issues. For example, we've had some feedback about the fact it would be interesting if there was a young woman in the story who was pregnant. So that would be an example of that. And in terms of the workshop, there's a need to strengthen the frame for the whole drama work so that the participants better understand their role as panellists in the workshop.
Has the program, as a process drama, reached its destination? Not yet, but the sails are full blown and it's tacking in the right direction.